This podcast is brought to you by the Irish Quarter Horse Association, an organisation committed to promoting the principles of Western-inspired horsemanship in Ireland. Whether you ride for pleasure or competition, whether you own a quarter horse, thoroughbred or any other breed, we believe that these principles can help you develop a deeper understanding of your horse and improve your riding skills. So, whether you're a seasoned rider, a recreational rider, or just starting out, we invite you to join us on this exciting new journey. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and stay tuned for future episodes featuring some amazing guests. Thank you for listening, and let's get started. Welcome everybody to today's podcast, and this evening we have with us Derek O'Byrne-White, President of the Irish Quarter Horse Association, Alice Doolan, Secretary of the Irish Quarter Horse Association, myself, I'm Amanda, and I'm the Public Relations Officer. And today we are talking to Bob Mayhew, a long-time friend of the Irish Quarter Horse Association. So welcome, Bob, and thanks very much for chatting to us this evening. So we'll get right into the questions. So Bob, you've been involved in Western riding for over 50 years. For people who don't know you, can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and the changes you've seen in the sport during your time and how those changes have impacted your approach to training and showing horses?
Well, yeah, I suppose before I really got into it, a background on horse riding and everything. My mother was a riding instructor years ago. Father rode for the army. So I was brought up in about that atmosphere. But I tried an English riding and I hated every minute. Staters, front heads, get up, so it was pretty regimental and I hated it. So it went on the back burner. But then when I got involved with selling some Western tack and stuff like that, people asked me if I could get some. I got involved with it. I thought I'd better put it on a horse and try it. And the moment I always wanted to ride, I was always a cowboy at heart, in the old films there, I'd hide behind the sofa and fire at Roy Rogers and all the rest of them. So when I put a Western saddle on a big thoroughbred, I went for a ride. I thought this is exactly what I wanted to do. And then I decided that what we'd try and do is to find out more about it. So luckily, I got a video player that would play NTSA tapes, and I managed to get some, and I started studying it because I saw this one. It was a quarter horse one, and I think it was Paul Horn. Forgive me if I got the wrong one, but I think it was Paul Horn riding a reining pattern on there and on that IQHA video, and I just thought that was phenomenal. The guy didn't seem to be doing anything, and yet here was this horse doing some fantastic stuff, and I fell in love with it, and I wanted to find out. And the more I wanted to find out, the more I met a load of people over there and I'd ask questions, and they all gave me the answers, and there's a very good, I've met a whole load of trainers that helped me along the way. And you find out that there actually is, they may vary their verbiage on it, but the underlying thing all the way through is the same. And therefore, it gave me a great insight, into my training. Dear old Chewy went down every wrong road, backed up when I found something else and went down the right road and became a superstar. So yeah, I can't thank some of those American trainers. They know who they are, because we'd run out of video if I had to tell you all the names. But yeah, and it was my vowed intention then to pass this on, because people said, what do you want to ride Western for? That's all running around like cowboys firing guns and Christ knows what. And so my goal then was to take Western riding to the English riding public and make it a proud name. And that's what I've done all my life. It's like that, not to say it's the best, but can you fault it? And the answer is no, you can't fault it. And underline that it is the best anyway.
Excellent. And so you've trained and shown numerous horses to success for both yourself and clients. Can you speak to your philosophy on horse training and how you develop a successful partnership with each horse?
That's ever so easy, really. I'll just read from my notes here. Now,
Open your own book.
yeah. Honest to God, you know, the thing about Western riding is right down to the roots. It's a horse that works with you. And the only way a horse will work with you is if you educate it. And I learned from that. I mean, Ray Hunt's old words, you know, old Ray Hunt, well, the late Ray Hunt was brilliant. And it's still the same everywhere you go, you know, to make the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult, to reward the slightest try, and then to see how easy it is to get the job done.
Mm.
Dick Pieper added another one once in there like that and said, you know, if we forgive them their faults, they might forgive us ours. So
Yeah.
I keep telling my wife that when I'm back from the pub.
Great all-round advice there.
Anyway, so you've got to pass that philosophy. People don't actually understand that the horse is governed by the laws of gravity. The thing about the training on the whole thing really is understanding the horses moving, you know, under the same laws of gravity as we are. And therefore, as human beings on this earth, we managed to learn to stand up with guidance from our parents and everything. So we managed to move left and right. We managed to do all these things. And so we got better at it. Our balance got better, and therefore we've grown around to it all. And that's what we've got to teach the horse. He has no idea why we should ride it or her, and secondly, is why he should change his mechanics of motion. And his mechanics of motion was just like ours, losing the center of gravity, getting the legs to catch up. And so you're pushing on the forehand all the time. So you start to teach him how to get that. And if you're prepared to teach is the word, all right, and make that understanding, then they will start working for you. And you will be surprised how quick some of those horses learn that. And in fact, you have to slow down because it frightens you. They're so brilliant. In fact, the only thing about a horse is he hasn't learned to teach us. You know, they probably try and teach us to ride them, you know.
Yeah. I think both Alice and I can attest to that, because we've both had horses that are new to the Western world, and I can say firsthand that Alice's new horse in particular, is learning at lightning speeds. It's incredible to see, you know. Yeah. Well,
you've only got to look at it. I mean, you know, you go down one of your motorways or whatever you call them like that, and you're doing about 80 miles an hour or whatever the kilometer is like that, and you see one of the guarders. It's amazing how quickly you slow down because the alternative is worse, you know. And that's the same for them. If you make the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult, they'll learn. They want a place.
Yeah.
Anybody's got a problem is usually because they're not seeing the problem and trying to fix the problem.
Yeah, very true. Very true. And you're a well-known judge in the Western riding world. What qualities do you look for in a successful horse and rider team when judging events? And how do you balance subjective and objective criteria when evaluating performance?
This is an interesting one. I have been very privileged in my life to have judged some of the most major shows around Europe and the world. And it's been fantastic, but I've studied it. So one of the main things is once you study to become a judge, and you never stop learning, and you never stop studying. I always judged some runs before I went anywhere. I always read the rule book, and then because the rule book is your Bible and your prayer book. If you judge according to that, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
So as far as having it, I think the one thing that I was taught, again, I've met some super judges, and you know, and they've helped me along the way, and I hope I'm passing this on, you know, to other people. But is the positive judging, not the negative judging. I mean, you know, so many people, you see a lot of shows where they got the horses going round and round and round, and they're thinking, I don't like that one, and I don't like this one, and I don't like the way it does that, and stuff. And in the end, you ended up with nothing that you like. Whereas if you look at the positives all the time, which is the nearest to the rule book? If you've got nothing out there, which one is the nearest to what the rule book is asking you? And it shows it up. Well, it's relatively easy if you follow the guidelines. And that's what the rule. You'll be surprised how many riders don't actually look at a rule book. It's quite frightening.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. And you've authored a book and produced.
It's a very good point because you're being judged.
Yeah, and Bob, you've authored a book and produced DVDs on Western riding and training. How did you approach the process of writing that book and producing the DVDs? And what message did you hope to convey to readers and watchers?
I think the answer really to that is to get somebody that can write properly. Or a professional behind a cameraman, because I am absolute CRAP when it comes to making myself sit down and write. I know what I want to say, and I can actually say. But in the first instance, the book, John Birdsall wanted desperately to write a book about Western riding. For what reason, he hasn't a clue either. But it was something different, and I would round pen mythical horses, or I'd ride mythical horses when he came down so we could go through it all. He'd take it away and he'd write it up, and then we'd put it together and we'd proofread, and that was good. So that's where we're going to go with the next book, you guys.
Yeah, it's in the works.
Yeah, there you go. It's a proven system.
Yeah.
Anyway, we lied through our back teeth to Crowwood to say, well, we reckon we'd sell about 4,000 copies, and eventually the book came out and they accepted it. And we were talking to them one day, and they said, "You're absolutely right. It has gone bigger. We've sold 4,000 to America, and then we've got copyrights for German, Italian, French, and we're looking at the fact that John and I had decided we'd agree on 0.5% of 1% of 1/4% of 1/3%, which is what they offered us. So we probably made enough for a Christmas drink, but they did okay out of it. So yeah, it was good. I think it ended up selling somewhere in the region of 29,000.
Oh, that's
which was
not bad, yeah.
Which was a little more than our 4,000.
Yeah.
But it was the first book, and the thing about that, it sold well in America, but the thing about it really was, and had some good reviews, was that we were actually taking something about my favorite sport and taking it to the British riding public without saying we're the best. It said, have you thought about this? Because 90% of the people riding around, say here, are riding around on the roads, and the Western saddle and the Western riding would be far better for them than the English riding, hauling. I mean, sometimes you look at them and they've got hands and arms like sort of rigid concrete. I used to be able to say something else, but I'm not doing it now. But they actually so rigid on everything, and you just go like. An example was that somebody couldn't get a horse past an object, funnily enough, outside the pub, and I happened to be there, unusual, and I came out and somebody helped them get back on their horse. They'd walked the horse past, but they couldn't get back on. So they got the steps for them. And I said, look, I'll hold the horse and you get back on. And I had to physically restrain her from tearing this horse's mouth back to its pooper to get on the horse. And I go, no, let go of the reins. You get on the horse and then you can take up the reins. And she did. I mean, I'm pulling like hell to stop her yanking this horse's head off just to mount the horse. Unbelievable. And Western riding, we could teach the damn thing to stand still. Yeah, Western riding has so much to play for, and get the public away from the straight toes, front hands together, because it means nothing. You've got to become a human being on the top. You've got to flow with these horses. You've got to educate them. Sitting up there, front hands. I mean, I call it religious riding.
And yeah, actually, religious is a good term for it, because those habits are so incredibly hard to break once you're up there. I think Alice would agree with me that the saying is true. Old habits die very hard when it comes to horse riding, and when it comes to, as you say, back straight, hands down, hands together, toes in.
You've only got to see what I was yelling at you for. There's another left. There
are other left. I'm not going to tell you a third time.
Yeah. I often say to people, if you hear me repeat the same thing 3 times, it might enter your brain that you might be doing something wrong.
Yeah. We've all been there. Oh, you've trained and coached numerous amateur and youth riders to success in the show arena. Can you speak to the challenges and rewards of working with these riders and how you tailor your approach to meet their needs?
Yeah, I think that the challenge sometimes is sometimes you feel as though they're brain dead. So well, you'd have to say so. I mean, if you start to explain it in simple terms, because there's so much gobbledygook in some of the traditional riding terms, but if you try to explain it in something where they can understand, so I would like to try and find something they do outside of riding where I can use it as a parallel to get them to understand. The problem most of the time in the riding is somebody wants to do something on top of this horse that if you put them on the ground and ask them to move, they couldn't possibly do it. It wouldn't work. So how the hell can the horse understand? It's governed by the same laws of gravity. So getting through that. But once we get that established, I think there's nothing finer than seeing a customer, novice rider, beginner rider to advanced rider, just going out there and having the greatest fun because they're in control of their horse. May only be partially, but whatever it is, that feeling that you've got really well. It's not a question about winning. It's a question, have you done everything that you could possibly do to make this a good run? And it's fantastic. They're all FDPs, Bronze sitting in the back here. I remember riding him, and he kind of took off with me on the rundown a little bit. So I said, right, you old bugger, we'll go for it. And we did. And we went flat out like that. And he came out of it. And we'd marked the 74. And it was a great run. But, that's the best I'm ever going to do. Now I've got to calm him down. But the thing about it is if somebody goes in and, no matter what level they're, and they do their best, okay, they can walk out of that arena feeling proud. All right.
Yeah.
That's the way they're going to go, and that's the way they'll improve.
I really like that suggestion of finding something in their personal life to apply to riding. I think that's quite an original approach. And and I remember
most important.
And I remember when we were at a clinic with you and we were talking about lead changes, and I'll always remember that you made one of the youth riders get off the horse and actually skip on the ground to explain where her body should be and where her legs should be, to ask the horse to lope on the correct lead. And it was comical, but at the same time, it was so simple, but so effective,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is. Yeah. I mean, we're supposed to say make the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult, but sure, I don't know, if everybody wants to make the wrong thing difficult, they can't blame the horse for not being able to do it.
Very true.
And it's a philosophy I've learned from so many great trainers.
And if there's anybody listening here today that would think they'd like to get started in Western riding, or think maybe that they're riding English currently and would like to delve into the Western riding world a little bit, how could they prepare, and what advice would you give them?
Pray. No, I mean, it's have an open mind. Have an open mind. Just see what you can achieve by making it simplistic. And let's face it, I'm as thick as the proverbial. So, I mean, if it wasn't simple, I'd be long gone. Well, me and Derek. But no, I mean, it's be prepared to have an open mind. Western riding is nothing to do with being cowboys and Indians and every old movie you like. In fact, if somebody raised a gun and said, "Yee-haw," and you just brought 4,000 head of cattle in out of 10,000 acres or something like that, you'd probably shoot them. So the answer really comes is just understanding. It's the greatest feeling. And remember where Western riding came from. It's the Spanish conquistadors. So we have a greater history of, if you like, a refined dressage than the dressage people. Yeah. And that's, I mean, you've only got to have a chat with your own dressage international in Darren Rawlings, and he'll come to you. He'll come to the Western riding. He loved it. Okay, it's not what we wanted, but we needed the sophistication of the cavalry fighting horse to be able, relaxed manner, to perform the same movements, because you didn't want to upset the cattle, but they had to be able to move, they had to be able to change leads, they had to be doing all these things. And that's the wonderful thing about it. And if you can do that, you start saying to people, start saying to you, how did you do that? I didn't see you do anything. You've won the day.
Yeah, very true. And last official question, what are your plans and goals for the future when it comes to the Western riding industry and as a whole, and how do you see the sport changing and evolving?
I think sometimes the Western regresses a little bit, like in the NRHA. They've just lowered their drug rule, which is just totally and utterly stupid. We want to be leaders of quality and horsemanship and equine comfort, not the other way around. Unfortunately, in any sport, money starts to play a part, but we've got to be careful of that. My goal has always been to show Western riding to the public as a thing they wish they were doing, and not as an excuse. And that's hard, because most people will give you the reasons why they don't want to do Western riding. It's up to us to give them the reasons why they do want to do Western riding, because it's better. It's nicer for the horses. It's nicer for everyday use and everything else like that. And that's the way we'll progress. We'll always get better. If you can show them a reason why they want to do something, good on you. Yeah. And you guys are doing that over there. I mean, if you look at what's happened, Western riding, against from the, shall I say, without offending anybody, the older traditions of trying to play the 1860 cowboy. Once you start putting this stuff together like this and everything else, people start having a respect. And you're getting a respect for your Western riding now over there.
Yeah, definitely. We're getting there.
In community, and that's all we ever asked for. Yeah. There's nothing more. Yeah, I mean, they're just dumb that they don't all take it up.
And we have a few minutes left, so I'll hand it over to Derek or Alice if you guys have any questions or anything you'd like to say to Bob. Or
yeah, I have a question for you, Bob. There's a saying, and I'm sure you've come across it: the bigger the problem, the bigger the bit. In your view, how much of that perceived problem is down to missing basic fundamentals, both in the horse's training and the rider?
About 100%. About 100%. What we have to realize is that any push on the bridle by the horse will affect their neck, it will affect their shoulders, and it will affect their hip. So unless we get that softness in the face where they can, relax the jaw and they can turn left and right, we have a problem. And that's why you'll always see me talking about direct bend, reverse bend, hip displacing and everything else. So if those fundamentals aren't soft and smooth, you cannot progress, in a nice manner. It's a physical impossibility. So the overcoming of that problem by using a bigger bit is just spinning your wheels. I mean, you end up by the time, if you go and follow that road, I suppose you'll end up with a piece of barbed wire or something stupid like that. Don't take that. But I mean, that's the stupidity of it. The problem is they're not accepting the bit and they're not softening it. And so it's a give and take. I see too many people riding around and they've got a death grip on their hands on that bridle. Or they've got, now there is a difference between having a mouthpiece, which is about 5 feet wide in the diameter, where the horse is just leaning on it. But the whole thing is you need the horse to be able to back off that to be able to use your legs on the rib cage to lift its shoulders up so it can step underneath itself. And that's the simple basics. If it can't balance, I mean, we can't balance ourselves if we just put a piece of steel in our mouth. We don't. We'll carry on like that way, and we might if so what we need to do is to learn to elevate the shoulders without using the head and neck as the balancing arm. We learn to do that, and they move their center of gravity back underneath where you are, the rider. And then when you're sitting there in the rider and you're having a proper riding position, which is basically one of standing up with the knees bent, and then what you can do is your core weight will direct this horse as to what you want to do. And then your hands will help it understand what you want it to do. But lazy legs make lazy horses. Does that sound okay, Derek?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just one of the concepts that I see here, that they're using more and more equipment to try and fix problems, when all I look at is that they're missing themselves. Something, what annoys me is that people don't realize that the horse needs to communicate via body language. So if we don't know what the horse is doing and we don't teach the horse what we mean by our body language, that's a mistake. And I'm always teaching people you have to earn the respect of the horse. You don't knock it into them. You've got to basically teach them what you mean. And when you have that respect and that leadership, when it comes to the ridden work, you probably find the horse much more trusting and willing to do what you want it to do, rather than have to fall back on buying a special bit or any type of equipment.
Well, who amongst us as human beings actually learned their 2 times table to algebra or anything else, or a foreign language, by having your brains kicked in, and beaten up to do that thing? What you wanted to do was to enjoy going to those lessons and enjoy doing that. And that's what we've got to make it. Now, there's a difference between total disobedience and, for want of better expression, up yours, then that needs to be reprimanded. But again, in a manner that the horse can understand it stepped out of line. That doesn't mean that we can, just beat them up for the sake of it. That's the worst thing we can do. It's education, not domination.
Yeah, it's a very valid point there, right? Alice, do you have a question? I'm sure you do have a question.
I do, of course I do. I have a very quick question for you, Bob. With your judging,
I'm coming back.
with all of your judging that you've done over the years, is there any particular class or any particular time that you really, really enjoyed, or a core memory from judging even?
I think every show I've judged, whether it be basic to the futurity, I've always done it. I've always loved it. I was thinking about, when we were asking about that, I did when I did the futurity the one time, I just got some figures here. So in the futurity in '94, was one of the 5 judges that did the whole caboodle. They've got 10 judges now. So we did 150 horses a day for 3 days. We had 180 horses a day for 2 days. That's 630 runs, 8 maneuvers. That's 5,040 decisions plus the penalties. And that's pressure to be accurate and everything else. So I always just thought I loved every minute of it, because it was just bouncing at you all the time. It was great. I mean, just imagine how many times you counted to 4. It's like 10,000 times in a week. I still can't find 5, 6, and 7. But, my maths is crap. But yeah, all of. And somebody did say to me, paid me, I think, a compliment one time. I was judging a little tiny show somewhere, a local show, and we were doing the reining, and I put as much concentration into that one, and it was, there were sort of 58 to 65, and the girl asked me if she could scribe, and I said, yeah, sure. So we went to it. She said, how, when you've judged the futurity, do you come and judge something like this? And I said, because you never know when somebody's going to come out here and put a like that. You never know. And so you have to be on your day to encourage everybody to get better. And that's what we must do. Everybody, a little bit in the UK where everybody's quite happy to stay at this lower level. We need to go up, onwards and upwards.
Yeah. Oh,
So which is what
good.
I'm looking for, because I think I'm coming back to judge a few
are
later on in the
indeed.
year. So I'm looking forward to that. Always get
Yeah,
excited.
yeah. September, you're here for the national show.
Okay.
Yep, and hopefully then next year we're talking about you and Mick Calder coming over to do the judging course, of course.
Mm.
Okay. That sounds
Uh,
perfect.
which
Mm.
will frighten a few people, no doubt.
Frighten Mick and I. No, it is good. The more we can educate people, the more we can do something. But I can never leave this without the fact of saying that I am so grateful for what I've learned from other people. And I'm just one of those people that's passing on all that information as we do.
Yeah.
And to wish Marilyn the greatest of fun this coming weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you. And on that note, I think we'll call it a day. And I just want to say thank you very much for agreeing to speak with us this evening. As always, it's been a pleasure to have you.
It's been my pleasure.
And
my pleasure. And thank you. And God bless you all.
yeah, and we'll see you in September.
You
Bob.
take care.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and don't forget to start doing the introduction to the book.
That's it. And just for all our listeners, if you'd like more information on Bob, you can look up his books, and we do have a limited number of his DVDs for sale. If you'd like any information about Bob, this podcast, or anything else got to do with the IQHA, you can email info@iqha.ie.